Hello and welcome to What Were You Thinking? Brought to you with Vestiaire Collective and hosted by moi, Henry Holland, the 37-year-old clueless fanatic. Before we get started, I just want you to know that this podcast is not about my guests' fashion fails. It's all about the fashion moments that have shaped their lives personally and professionally. And this episode, I'm totally bugging because we have an extra special guest who single-handedly created some of the most iconic on-screen looks that inspired me endlessly over my 15 years as a designer. Make my day, Mona May. As a designer, no one movie and its costumes inspired me more than Clueless. Released 25 years ago this year, and yet the movie's costume and style feels as modern and relevant today as they ever did, as they continue to inform and inspire a new generation and spawn copycat versions from Halloween costumes to the runways of London, New York, Paris and Milan. Mona May is the costume designer responsible for creating an aesthetic through the film's characters that not only cemented them in the place of the hearts of millions, but also created a fashion moment that lives on 25 years later. And it's not only Clueless, she later worked on Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion and The Wedding Singer. One of the reasons for starting this podcast is my fascination with clothing and how it becomes a form of emotional expression, telling the world who we are and how we feel, whilst forming a visual backdrop to our own life stories. And the role of costume design in film and TV has always been an obsession of mine. So I'm beyond chuffed to have Mona May on today's episode. Hi Mona.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here and so nice to meet you, Henry. I'm just delighted to just bask in the spotlight again, because 25 years later is crazy that that this film has lived so long and it's so still relevant in the society. It's unbelievable. I'm just jumping for joy, seriously.
Has it been fun to revisit it with all the anniversary stuff, or has it been a bit like, okay guys, I have done other stuff?
So much fun. I love this movie. I think the most important thing is what the movie brings to the audience and what I feel that the love there is, for this film continuously. When I meet women of all ages, when they find out that I did the costumes, they squeal with delight. They tell me the stories, what happened to them and how old they were when they first saw the movie. And, some were older and it was pre-Amazon. So they had to search how to find the over-the-knee stocking. One was telling me that her daddy bought her a Jeep. So it's just great, this emotional kind of connection. Now with my Instagram too, women send me, that, they loved the movie when they were young and now they just showed it to their children, a 10-year-old daughter or, so now the new fans are growing.
It just feels like it's kind of snowballed and it just keeps growing and growing and it doesn't feel to dissipate at all because it's such a visual treat. I watched it last night and just, it's one of those films that you could happily watch with the sound off, and that's no disrespect to the script. You know what I mean? There's no disrespect to the script at all, but I could sit and watch that film, and I think that is, a testament to incredible costume design. But you can sit and watch a film with the sound off and you can understand who those girls are and who those characters are and what that world is all about.
Exactly.
And I think that's another example of that would be like Sex and the City. You can watch Sex and the City and know who those four women are because of the way that they are presented. And that's why I love costume design as a medium. I think it's such a powerful tool.
It's amazing. I love that. As a costume designer, you get to really dive into the psychology of each character, to see what's on the page, but then they take it from there and kind of really reimagine it in a sense. And, prepare with the actor and dive, what also the actor feels like. I always tell everyone that my favorite moments are in a fitting room, when we are there and we have the clothes in the room and we are just starting to try it, because you can imagine so many things, but not till the clothes are on the actor. And when it really kind of has that magic of coming together, when they are like, oh, I'm it, and that's what happened to Alicia Silverstone, because she was like, she was 18 years old. She didn't have any acting experience, but the Aerosmith video, she was at the time a young girl running around with the dog. She was, completely, you could say, hippie girl, in her sweatpants. So she had to really learn how to be this character, step into the clothes and go, oh,
Yeah.
they were very binding, as she says in the movie.
Yeah. So tell me about your process then. So what's your starting point? You get the script first of all, and then you sit and read that, and then you start to, your imagination runs wild and you start to build your characters visually in your own mind.
Right.
What's the process like for you?
Well, this was very interesting, how this movie happened, Clueless, because I actually worked with Amy Heckling on a pilot, the director of Clueless, who wrote the film. The pilot didn't get picked up, but we just connected creatively incredibly. This was just, we were like on the same wavelength. We would bring the same, this is pre-computers, everybody. Tear sheets from magazines, like, oh my God.
That's why you have so many books behind you.
Yes. I still read them. I still research them. So this really incredible connection, creative connection was formed. So when she wrote Clueless, she called me and she said, I really want you to do it. Also, my background is European. I was born in India to Polish and German parents. I grew up in both countries. My mom still lives in Berlin.
Yeah, what was your journey to get to being a costume designer?
I was one of those kids who just from early age just loved fashion. Probably like you, drawing princesses was 20 different changes and having the whole collection on the wall and telling mom what to wear, and so that was just what I loved from. I don't know. I feel like I was born with it. It's just kind of some understanding and feeling for it. So I went to, through fashion schools in Europe, and I ended up in New York and then in LA. And while I was in LA, you hang out with all kinds of people. Everybody's going to school, and there were friends from University of Southern California, USC and UCLA, and they were film majors, and they said, hey, we need some clothes. And kind of that was the moment, I helped, and I loved what you talked about, is that kind of psychology of who these people are and how to dress them. So not just fashion, but it's more. And, I'm a good team player. I mean, I love the kind of collaborative experience on set, working with the director, working with the director of photography, with the production designer. We all bring our talents to create this visual story, from the page of the script. But that's why I think how this whole thing began for me with Amy, and Amy really wanted always this film to be very high fashion, very kind of Beverly Hills girls where money is no object and they can go to the runway shows and basically pick their clothes. But the reality of 1994, 1995 on the street of Los Angeles was grunge. Everybody was pretty much, into Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, baggy jeans, baggy pants. Girls looked like boys. So it was very funny when we went to, do some scouting, and it just was dismal. We just would look at each other and go, oh my God, this is just the most horrible word. We need to.
This is so depressing.
This is so fucking depressing. We need to make our world fabulous. And I think the idea was to also create something beautiful and feminine and pretty, to really change things around.
But also it reflects that the girls are like, they're leaders in their environment. They are the ones that set those trends in the school environment, which kind of comes across with the way that they are so kind of, they stand out so much.
Correct. So, then I was on a film, and here I have the script. Amazing script. I feel like the script also is just really, really fantastic, because you have very developed characters, and then taking, my ideas from the runways. So I had to really look into what's happening in London, what's happening in, Paris and Milan, and kind of, okay, what are the trends? Because the movie also doesn't come out till a year from making it, because it has to go through editing and all the process. So not only I was creating a new world, but when it came out, I wanted to make sure it's fresh. And the other very, very important thing was that Amy, specifically the director, also didn't want the actors to look like models strutting around in their high heels, snooty girls. They have to be authentic and real.
Yeah.
So how do you now take the fashion, the high fashion from the runways, and really kind of almost transform through the eyes of these young girls? What would they do? How would they kind of incorporate into their lives? So we always had like sweet shoes like Mary Jane's, the over the knee stockings, everything kind of came from real thing, like a plaid. So plaid skirt for everybody is Catholic school, right? And like a uniform. But what does Cher does with it? Well, she gets a Dolce & Gabbana suit.
That's taken us perfectly into the first look that I want to talk about. So obviously I think that it's not quite the opening scene, but the opening scene when the two girls arrive at school and they're both wearing their tartan suits. So Cher's wearing the yellow. I mean, everybody can picture this look like perfectly.
Oh my God. I think it's the most known yellow plaid outfit,
Yes.
I mean, it's comparable to the Marilyn Monroe white dress. I mean, it's really
absolutely.
It's iconic.
Was that Dolce then?
It was a Dolce. Dolce actually at the time had a young line, like a youthful line. So that was from their line.
D&G, was it D&G?
D&G, exactly.
Yeah.
It was a D&G. And it was actually off the rack, so I found it in the store. And that movie at the time was not a big movie. That was about $25 million movie.
Right.
As a costume designer, we get like 2 months to prep.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money in the budget for costumes, especially when you're thinking of Alicia Silverstone having 60 changes.
I mean, you must have been...
I don't know if there's any other movie.
So in the first 3 minutes when I was watching it last night, there's like 6 changes and we were all sat here watching it being like, there is so many clothes. This is why this film is so great. We'll be back with Mona after this. In case you've been living under a rock and you haven't noticed, this podcast is in partnership with Vestiaire Collective. That's en français for shared wardrobe, darling. The leading global platform for pre-loved fashion. There are currently over 1.6 million fashion items available to purchase from every brand you could ever imagine. And over 50,000 new ones are added every single week. Download the Vestiaire Collective app and use my promo code Henry at the checkout for 20 quid off when you spend 150. Full T's and C's on vestiairecollective.com. Au revoir. So you bought the yellow suit from Dolce. Was the plaid that idea of kind of the twist on that uniform, that, that Catholic girl, that sweet innocence, but it was this acid bright, pumped up version that really made those girls pop from the rest? Or
right, but again, the yellow wasn't really planned. Because we, as a blonde, I was thinking blue. I was thinking maybe red is pretty beautiful, kind of powerful color.
Yeah.
But we were discussing where that scene is going to take place. And it was in the quad where you have a lot of green, a lot of people crossing, back and forth.
Yeah.
So when in a fitting, we tried the beautiful blue suit that I had, which was a different brand. And it just felt flat, even though it was beautiful on Alicia. Then we tried the red, and the red was just a little trying too hard, like just not quite appropriate.
Yeah.
When she put the yellow, which was kind of like not a color you associate with blondes, it was incredible. It was that one moment that, I talk about in the fittings when this is the perfect thing. That where she put it on, she just was like the ray of sunshine. That color yellow, the energy of the color itself was just radiating this warmth. And that was it. I mean, we all look at each other, Amy heckling, Alicia, me, and we were like, this is it. This is it. And
I love those moments. I love those moments when you're just like, we've done something magical. Something's happened.
When everything kind of aligns together. And then I designed the yarn suit to go with it. Yeah, so that was Monome original. I felt that black and white would be really nice, very fresh for her skin. I was able to find that hat. It was a New York millionaire, Cockin, still exists. We're still friends to this day. And then I designed the vinyl lapel to kind of match the hat. And of course, the backpack, skin the collie, and all the other accessories, the phones that they had, and the over the knee stockings. Dion actually had knee highs and a 50s purse. What was really nice too about this film, which was almost the mother of invention when you don't have a lot of money. It was where at the time in the 90s, people wore high fashion.
Yeah.
People wore thrift store clothes. People didn't really go high and low. Like we have the Balenciaga now with the ripped jeans and the flip-flops, and then you have, expensive jewelry. It wasn't really very happening at the time. And I kind of created that first time that people saw mixing of the high and low. So you had the Dolce Gabbana suit, but then you had the 50s, purse, and then you had the Mary Janes from the mall, and t-shirt and a little vest under. So that was also, I think, very fresh at the time, something that I think to this day inspires and feels kind of new.
Was that partly because you didn't have the budget to do the D&G head to toe, or was that part of your kind of building of the characters of those girls?
It was a mixture of the things. It was something maybe really in the beginning, I really didn't have the money to buy all designers. I mean, I probably would have more designer clothes in the film if I could afford it. But in a way, it allowed me to pull more of my own in there and kind of make it a little fresher, having to go to thrift stores and having to go to the mall. And, imagine trying to create a future with only things you have now. So how selective and, you have to be really innovative to get that across.
And how did you go about creating the nuanced difference between Cher and Dion's characters? Because they're two best friends, and we all know those best friends, those relationships where girls dress in a very similar way, and it's very cliquey and it's very cool. But all of the girls in the film have this kind of collective group style, which is like the Clueless style. Right. But then the characteristics of each individual shine through so strong. So how did you approach those nuanced differences between those two leads?
Well, as a costume designer, script is always my blueprint. And, you spend a lot of time talking to the director before you start fittings, who these girls are, and Cher was very proper in a way. She was prissy almost to a point, very couture to me. She had a very beautiful petite body, and what is great on those girls, it's, little dresses, cup sleeves, empire waist, these little airline skirts, very kind of classic. Almost to me, she was like a French girl.
Yeah.
She reminded me, or Audrey Hepburn too, she would have the perfect little black dress, in this case, red dress. But, light skin tone, blonde hair, so what is the color palette for her? What are her shapes? Much more kind of classic shapes. And then you have Dion, who is sassy. She's much more experienced with the boys, of course.
Yeah.
She wears, a lot shorter skirts. Her textures are much more interesting. So you have the vinyl skirt, you have the leopard, you have the neon colors, which I really loved putting on her as well. A lot of kind of hair accessories, and, we're definitely able to push the envelope with her. So, from there, definitely when you put that into fashion language, you have two different girls.
Yeah.
But they always called each other in the morning to find out what they're wearing, because they had to go together
to match. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
And how did the two actresses approach it when you were in the fittings? You talked a little bit about Alicia. It was like her first big role. What about the other characters in the film?
Yeah, everybody was very young in the movie. I mean, it was very, a lot of up-and-coming actors, and I think none of them were ever in a film where demanded so much from the wardrobe. There was a lot of fittings.
Yeah.
But I think they really enjoyed the process, because it was learning about, being in the fitting with somebody like me who, I'm so obsessed about everything, head to toe, with the the fuzzy pen to the earring to the shoe to the thing, I just every detail. So it was really I think interesting for them to be part of this kind of almost a learning process. I think for Alicia, she even left me a message the other day saying, Mona, I never really knew how important that was, like how what the film is going to be, because she was so young, and it was a lot of work for her. I mean, imagine getting 60 changes done. It's a lot of hours in the fitting and trying clothes on, and, maybe this doesn't work, and then we have to try it again, and then you have to make the alterations and then put the outfit together, and then maybe try it again, and then take a picture, because then I have to make the collage of all the changes and where they're going to go. Dion, Stacey was a little older. I think she was already a little bit more into fashion in a way, so she was really into it in a sense of like, I love it. Give me that vinyl skirt, let's do the ribbons in the hair, so she was more open, and I think just
she was like encouraging, like egging you on to be like more, let's
exactly,
go.
I mean, the hats that we did, she loved wearing the hats, and she was just such a beautiful girl. We just had so much fun with her, and she also had a very kind of her own sense of style too that she brought to it, like that little sassy, that little, I mean, she knew how to make her character edgy in a way, like, yeah, she's already gone second base with the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
But same with the boys. Everybody was just part of it was such a good set, having an awesome leader, like a great director who's into fashion, who's encouraging, and who wrote the script, who gets the characters. So it's kind of like, it doesn't feel like work.
Is it true that Paul Rudd wore mostly his own clothes? I read that somewhere when I was...
No, that's Adam Sandler.
Different film.
Different film, but it looked like he wore his own clothes. I mean, it's a quintessential character of... I mean,
that's amazing costume design again.
Yeah, and I mean, we tried to do something fun with his t-shirts, like he had...
There were always a different cause. I was noticing last night there was always a different charitable cause. So
exactly.
Amnesty International and breast cancer targeting.
Exactly. Or some cool bar in Austin, some cool, real, obscure bar in Austin that friend of mine gave me the t-shirt. So we always tried to kind of, for him to be the Nietzsche reading guy and intellectual and, about the cause. But if you look at characters like him, they would wear the same thing now. It would be that t-shirt, baggy t-shirt with the plaid shirt, with the kind of, just worn jeans. And there was not a lot for him to change. You wanted to make sure that he, as he was in the movie, didn't care about clothes. It was really kind of like, the opposite of that.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of underplayed in a sense, but fit him well. Was always, everything was washed. Everything felt he had it in his position for a long time.
I'm almost as mesmerized by the extras in the film and just the way they build this entire world, right? There was so many characters and each and every one of them was just so well done. How many people did you have to dress? Was it just like insane amounts of outfits?
Insane amount. I mean, seriously, insane amount. Like somebody asked me in an interview recently, what would I think? I mean, I would think it's probably over 2,000 costumes because, imagine all the extras in the quad, in the school, in the outside, in the classroom. They would come in the morning at 5 a.m. to get dressed because they were wearing plaid shirts, baggy pants, and dark, ugly colors, which definitely did not fit our color palette. So it was really a lot of work, really kind of creating the cliques. You had you have the skateboarders, the punk rockers, you have the stoners, you have the smart kids, you have the cool boys. All of those people. Then you have the cute girls in the classroom with, Amy had them, like they all had nose jobs. those,
they all had the plaster, which I thought was so fun. For the supporting characters, so, like Ty and Amber, do you feel like there's more freedom and room for experimentation, or is it the same process of kind of really like, isolating what that character is about and what they're there to do, I suppose?
I mean, I think that always it's the same process in a sense, because you have to see who they are on a page. You have to see who the actor is. What can you do? Because let's say Amber, the fashion victim character, if that was a different girl in different body shape, maybe those clothes would actually not look as the same way and be more funny, or
Yeah, do you not get less bits of script about those more supporting characters, and so there's more sort of freedom for interpretation, I guess, from your perspective? Yeah,
correct, yes. So I mean,
well, for me, Amber's one of the unsung fashion heroes. I love her themes, her sort of Jungle Jane, the camo and the leopard. I love her wired plaits. I love her nose job, her pea kit. I just think she is so cool. I'd like to be Amber for sure. And she's got
Oh my God, who wouldn't want to be Amber? Seriously.
And she's got a feeling of Betty Boo and Delight. Like, did you reference any of those
Completely.
girls? Was it like you looked at music videos and pop stars for those kind of characters?
Completely. Delight was, I loved her so much. So yes, absolutely. And and we were all kind of bringing ideas to the table too. I mean, I love Pippi Longstocking, was one of my favorite characters growing up. So I mean, how fun was that? And then wiring her hair and making the hair stand and all the textures and colors. So it just was a lot of fun. I think it's one of those characters that, like you said, you can kind of go wild and do anything and everything worked. I mean, the sailor hat, the sailor outfit with the little money sign,
The dollar
it's just,
sign,
and
yeah.
she was such a game too. I love that she was so open, our actress to just
Yeah.
really. She was never afraid of anything, and I think that also the outfits were not comical. They were always kind of high fashion, so she didn't feel that she was like fashion victim but ridiculous, like a clown or.
She was never the butt of the joke. Like that,
Exactly,
there was never
exactly.
never a negative.
That was always like, high enough style that it was kind of crazy but really cool.
Yeah. I just love her. And so you mentioned it briefly earlier, but was it important for you to represent and name real designers throughout the movie because that would be, typical of those Beverly Hills Girls lifestyles? So that, the Calvin Klein reference, the Alaya reference, were those designers in the script or were they designers that you chose
No.
and put in?
It was much more organic because I think it really was what happened in the fitting and then incorporated into the script because we just didn't have the luxury to just have all of this. And that was before the PR machine too, so it was not like maybe in the Sex and the City where they get all the clothes from all the designers. That was really, in the 90s, that wasn't really that way. So for me to get the things was really hard, to get the Alaya dress. I actually had a contact through a friend in Paris and she contacted, the representation there and they agreed to it. I had to like write them a letter and say, just know that the dress may end up on the ground and hope nothing happens because I know I have to return it in one piece to you. And, they were super cool about it, but it was just what hook would I get? And
Yeah.
same with the Calvin Klein dress. We had a bunch of stuff in the fitting and, there were like things that looked more slip-like because we wanted to make sure that also audience understands, is it a slip? But it started to look a little bit too lingerie and too sexy. It was too tight, too spandex. So then when we actually put the cream spaghetti strap cotton jersey dress on her, it felt right. It was kind of still very sheer, very up. It didn't feel slutty in any way, but it was in the way of the eyes of the father inappropriate.
And did Calvin Klein lend the pieces for the movie as well, or did you buy off the rack for those?
I bought it. I bought it off the rack. Yeah, I bought it off the rack. It just, and then we had the wrap, the see-through jacket that she wore. Like she said, "Da, dead," and then she puts the see-through coat, which was Vivian Tam. So it was a great, I think it was just such a great thing. And again, we were able to put the names in there, but as I said, it was very, very organic how it happened.
Two of the movie's most famous lines, like "Daddy, it's a dress," says who? Calvin Klein, and like "It's an Awada," "It's an Alaya." Like they are two of the most famous lines in the movie, which is kind of testament to how much the movie is around the fashion. But they could have not happened had it not been for that process. That's amazing.
Totally.
So they were kind of really last minute additions to the script.
Yes, and it really came through wardrobe into the script. It wasn't the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think what was so wonderful, because I think Alaya at the time was huge in Paris. I think he was super important designer.
Of course.
But really not known overseas, here in America, especially to masses. So it was
right. Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, I hear this all the time from girls like, I never even heard of Alaya,
Yeah.
So it was very cool. And I think in the same way, now we're talking about all the Black Lives Matters and all this stuff. I think that Amy Heckerling also was such a original and innovator at the time, to put African-American girl in this very affluent position of a best friend in Beverly Hills, I speak to a lot of young girls who telling me that, they before never seen a girl who dressed like this, who was like that was African American. So I think there was a lot of, Amy is really a visionary.
I think it's really important as well that there's no real reference to Dion's color at all in the movie. It's just like that's just the way it
Yeah.
is. Like that's my
Yeah.
best friend, and
Yeah.
that it's not kind of
Yeah.
made a deal out of it at all, which I think is kind of the most honest and natural way of kind of including that in the movie. But then I think through the fashion as well, Dion has that sense of self, and her reference points are a little bit more sassy, a little bit more sexy, a little bit more street, and I think that kind of comes through in that way, which is clever.
Street, definitely street, because she also had to go with Murray, and then Murray had to kind of have his little clothing coordinated, and always looking good, and he had the Congo hat with his little maybe matching hoodie or something. It was really fun to dress the boys too.
Were there any designers that refused to lend anything, or declined to be involved? Because they must be gutted looking back.
Just, what, who knows, 25 years ago, who I reached even out to. It was just kind of like, it's such a little time you have to prep. You are rolling up your sleeves and okay, next. You got to keep going, moving. Okay, no, okay, next. It's truly, I'm fascinated by my job, in a sense that we can get accomplished so much, that actually this movie happened, and all the fashion is impeccable, and to this day that I was able to actually create this. It's really truly a huge thing, thinking of all the fittings and then alterations, and then doing the puzzle, which outfit go in which scene, with all the three girls matching, and then the other people, and then making sure where they are in a scene. Does it go with the is it in the mall, or is it in the cafeteria outside? It's a huge job. So I think a lot of times that audiences don't realize what costume designers do. I love that I can talk about it to you, and so many, I think now, even more so, we are elevating our craft to a higher position. I think there's more interest of people about costume design, and I think it's great because through all this medium, I can talk about it, and for people to understand it, what we do. It's kind of a little bit enigmatic job. I feel like people think, oh yeah, they just wear their own clothes, or it's somebody sends me the clothes and I put the clothes on the actor and they just go on the screen.
No, it's so much deeper than that. And so you mentioned that the Moname original of Dion's black and white check suit. Which other outfits in the movie were Moname originals that you custom made?
The other big one was the jacket that she wears over the red Alaya dress.
Okay.
Because
amazing.
I felt it was, very important for her to have something fabulous to go to the Christmas party. And
so this is going to be the second outfit that we're going to focus on. So it's the party in the valley. She's got the red Alaya dress on. She's got the red satin Mary Janes.
Yes.
And this incredible waisted, almost Edwardian cut brocade jacket with a feather collar, right?
Yes.
So you designed that jacket?
Yes, I designed a jacket. I love feathers. I feel like I will have a feather boa on my grave, because it's just like Monome's signature, especially when you see my movies, Never Been Kissed, Romy and Michelle, there's always some boa somewhere.
Yeah. It's almost like in this movie in particular, it almost feels like it's fur for teenagers. It's like those Beverly Hills rich women would be wearing the big furs, and these teenagers are like, I can afford a boa from the fancy dress shop.
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was great. It was, it was such a delight, because when we were setting out to get her something for that scene, that Christmas scene, I just wanted to be something very, very high fashion, almost a little bit adult, and I think that dress said everything, because it was a little bit lower, lower cut for everything that she wore. The beautiful kind of straps, very wide apart, and that straight neckline, and just enough of that beautiful material that Alaya has used over the years, that just kind of grabs you and gives you that figure, but never ever, is indecent in any way, which I think was so beautiful. It just gave her such confidence, who she is.
I think her mannerisms are really powerful as well, like the way she walked, the way she kind of interpreted in those clothes, she didn't over sexualize her movement. She kind of had a
Yes.
sort of clunky
Yes.
teenage 15-year-old walk. Like she wasn't really that good in high heels and
Yes,
stuff.
and that and that is Amy Heckerling. Yeah, yeah, and that's Amy Heckerling. Really a great eye for that. Really always grounding it to the high school age, so kind of the awkwardness, be it with the clothes, be it with the language and their expression. And again, I think that's such a part of the success of this film, all those feelings, because it never felt like too much. They're talking about maybe remaking Clueless now, and I feel like it will never work because it's our world is so different. The innocence is gone. It's like it's just
Yeah.
it would have to be so sexualized, and I'm so this and I'm so that, and that none of that was in the film. And I think, and maybe that's what it is. Like when I said in the beginning, where someone on my Instagram is saying, "I love your movie," and I just showed it to my 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Because they feel like it's still the right thing. It's the expression of youthfulness. It's decent. It's beautiful. It's empowering instead of being like, hey, yo, what I'm doing, and like what being very kind of
knowing. I think it's like there's a naivety
too
to the
knowing.
girls, but
Yes,
like they're
yes,
super knowing about their looks and their
yes.
fashion and their style, but there's a naivety to the way they present themselves as women, I think, which is endearing.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said. Endearing, it's a beautiful word, I think, for that. Yeah. And I think the combination of what you talked about in the beginning, it's like a fashion show that you can turn off and just see the visuals, to the actors, to kind of that innocence. All of that, I think, really touched women's hearts,
Yeah.
truly identifying with the characters, wanting to emulate the characters. The fashion is such a huge part, but I think it's, there's emotion in it.
Costume design is the most explicit way that we kind of realize the power of fashion and the way its ability to tell people's stories, which is why I love it so much. I want to be a costume designer when I grow up. That's what I've always said. So if you ever need an intern, if you ever need an intern,
come to LA. Let's tag along. Yes, please come. But can I say something on because I love what you just said, and I feel like we don't realize when actor stands, come onto the screen, and within probably 10 seconds, who they are, but what they wear, and really that information cannot be conveyed with these props, with the walls, with their house. It really truly is incredibly quick read to understand who the character is. And I love that. I mean, to me, really, I paint with, to me, frame is like a painting, and how people interact and who they are and what they're wearing and colors and, including the extras. It's really like, to me, it's how I create my painting.
It's true in real life. It's how we represent ourselves to the outside world. It's how we tell people who we are, what we're about. I always say it's like a billboard to the outside world. We make a decision on people.
Billboard to the, I love that.
We make a decision on the people that we meet within the first 8 seconds of meeting them, and that's whether they've spoken or not. So I think, it's something that's reflected in real life as well. And so back to that jacket, what was your reference points for the jacket? Had you seen something on the runway, or was it, fully just...
I'm just such a fan of just those Edwardian jackets and that fitted kind of a little bit longer. I just feel like, it was also mostly what would work with the dress and how would, showcase her body in the best way, and the bow was so festive. It just, we wanted to, there was nothing really in the film because they were young girls, not unlike Rami and Michelle where they are adult girls, and I could kind of go with that a little further. There was nothing really that adult, and I think this was the most adult outfit that she ever wore, so I think that kind of brocade material was also very kind of elevated, and I think the boa kind of framing her, and the boa in the parking lot and getting mugged, it's even more crazy.
Yeah.
So I think, everything kind of comes together in my mind and kind of mixes it, and then something comes out. It's the different ideas that propel the design. I'm sure, everybody has their own process, but it's the scene dictates so much too, like what would be funny, what is right.
So when you're putting together the outfits for a particular scene that relate to the script, do you work with the set designers and the production designers to figure out what the visual is going to look like for each frame, what the backdrop is going to look like to frame the outfits in terms of colors and looks, or is that just something that kind of you test out once you're on screen?
No, we have a lot of meetings, at the beginning, and I think this what was really interesting in Clueless, that we wanted the clothes to pop,
Yeah.
because we knew we're gonna use a lot of colors, a lot of textures. So we actually, Amy's, in our meetings, spoke with the production designer, where the sets kind of, we reseated them. So if you really look at the sets, are kind of like, allowing the costumes to pop. They're always very muted, mostly kind of gray tones. There's a lot less maybe clutter in the film, and the set dressing as well. And of course, I was then closely working with like set dresser, and making sure what couch they are on, what props. A lot of the props I actually bought myself, or we made the props because they were not really available. The stuff that was so innovative and new. It's from the beginning, when you do the visual boards, and you in those meetings of really discussing, who they are, where they live, what's going on, what's the location going to be, what the colors of the walls will give you. This is really the time to communicate everybody's information. And then I can go, oh, what, that green thing is going to be bad, or, that's not really great color for Alicia's skin, and I'm going to really pump up the colors here. So, it's really kind of working together to creating that beauty. And, sometimes there are mistakes, and something happens, that there is miscommunication, and you walk on the set and she's wearing a green sweater and there's a green couch. That can happen as well, because the couch they originally wanted to get didn't come through. So, there's last minute changes as well. Always. You have to be on your toes. And I think as a costume designer, you have to be open to those changes, because there is so many unseen, invisible things that can happen. It's just a moving picture.
Yeah.
It's not like a painting or a photograph.
Were there any outfits that ended up on the cutting room floor that you were upset by them not making the final movie?
I was lucky to make 60. And 45 to Dion, I was, and then Ty had probably 35, and then you had Amber, and then you had the boys, and then you had the extras. So I think we used pretty much everything we had. I mean, there was a giant trailer full of clothes and accessories.
Yeah, I can imagine. Moving on to the third outfit that I want to talk about, and that is the PE class. Because I love that it's in a way it's the most explicit way that the characterization is set for each of the girls, because it's the most in uniform that they are, because there's the monochrome look to that, which creates this amazing visual on a tennis court, but also it just allows you to really express each of the girls' individuality within the confines of a black and white uniform style, I suppose. Who came up with the concept to make it monochrome and to have that black and white uniform effect?
Well, again, coming from kind of the authenticity and what happens in real life. So we were like, okay, again, this is what every school has, but what happens in Beverly Hills and those girls that have everything? So it really was kind of coming from that very basic premise, and then, creating each one of them into their own characters. So, Dion has a tuxedo shirt with the sheer, sleeves, with her matching beeper, with the, of course, kind of street headband, her bandana. Then you have, our prissy Cher in her little spaghetti strap tank top over the t-shirt, which is now de jour. Everybody wears it. They even come as a set. Yeah. Then you have Amber in her little...
And then Amber has the matching cord, which is also so popular now. Matching cycling shorts and bra top.
So good with the crazy hair.
I feel like Amber would be Kylie Jenner.
Totally.
Don't you? Don't you feel like Amber would be the Kylie Jenner?
Totally. Oh my God. So good.
She would have her own line of lip
completely.
Kits, 100%.
And I think Cher would be CEO.
Yeah.
Dion, I don't know, she could even run some, I mean, maybe she even became a lawyer in the end. She's like, forget this. I'm just going to be a power bitch, and I'm just going to show you all, probably had a bunch of kids with Murray, and I don't know. It's great to it would be fun to look into the future, and
yeah. Do you ever think about the characters and how the movie would be if it was made today? Do you ever have you ever been asked about that? Have you ever thought about how different it would be if they had social media, if they had smartphones,
I just don't think it would work. Like we talked about it before, it just wouldn't feel so beautiful. And it was a time that was, it's a capsule in time, I think, that really can't be replicated, because it was, I don't know, what we showed really was the girls being girls without the influence of everything, how maybe you should be, it was much more less.
Yeah.
We knew less, and maybe it was better in a sense, um,
Yeah.
kind of creating that individualism that came more from you, that you didn't have to copy everything, in a sense, because now it's like, you just Google everything and you just know everything, and everybody is a fashion designer. So, there was a little bit that limitation, maybe it was actually really great.
It allows that naivety to come through, to come out. Yeah, it's like you wouldn't have that today. You would know
Yeah.
if your school was starting trends in Seoul, Korea. Do you know what I mean? Because you'd be an influencer and you'd be on the internet,
Right.
and you'd have a global audience to everything that you were doing. So
Right. And I think that's a problem too, because I think as an influencer, not that something is wrong to be with influencer, but I think that you start living your life to be influencer. So every decision that is made is to influence and to do something. So it's more like a show off instead of coming from truly from you sometimes, and I feel like that also was much more true to who they were, without really being like a show off, always being,
yeah.
oh, look at me, I'm wearing this today, isn't it great? That never felt like in a film.
In that scene, in the PE class scene, it's the first time we meet Ty. And I think that whole journey of Ty's arrival as the grungy skater girl, when they're like, ooh, and then, the transformation and the makeover. And then when she finally kind of ends in this comfortable middle ground between how she arrived and, how she would present in this new world.
Yes.
Was that an exciting kind of journey to put together from a costume perspective, that like using fashion in such a way on the storyline?
It was so much fun, especially because Brittany Murphy was already, even though she was 17, she was brilliant,
Is that how old
Yes,
she was?
she was 17,
Wow.
again, one of her first movies. And she came with her mom, chaperone. But what was so incredible, her instincts were so right on, she truly was immediately in the fitting said, Mona, I just want to go really grungy. Make me look ugly. I want to really show myself like this very lost girl. Let's make my hair horrible hair color. That T-shirt, the hideous brown baggy pants, and that's probably the only very.
That's brave as a 17-year-old girl.
Yes.
Like your first big movie, you want to look gorgeous and desirable, and she was like, no.
But she knew in her heart what it will do. It will give her the arc.
Yeah.
And that was same for me. I wanted to have that room to play. So then her becoming kind of the mini me of Cher, to kind of emulating her in a way that maybe it wasn't designer, but came from like a mall, contemporary casual little store. So, there was not the fabulous fabrics. The shape maybe didn't fit so perfectly, but it was what she would want it to be like Cher. And then having that transition to the end where you see her blossoming and finding herself. So in the end where she kind of is almost like the bookend, she's wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and now she has the pigtail, but she's a completely different person. She's, this very youthful, young kind of street girl with her skateboarder boyfriend.
Yeah.
So it gave us that place to really go and come back around.
And you use hats quite a lot in the movie. There's a lot of headwear, which I think is often a really strong character building device. Is that a Mona May signature? Is that something that you felt referenced the time, or is that just a really strong way when there's, close crops to really emphasize elements of character?
All of the above. I love hats. I love hats.
Okay.
I think if you see pictures of me on the internet, I always almost have a hat on. I put one on today, but it's so hot in LA that with the lights and everything, it was too hot to wear.
You had to take it off.
But yeah, I love hats. I love vintage hats. When I go visit my mom in Berlin, I always scour all the thrift stores for the 30s, 40s, 50s hats, men's, women's, anything, fascinators. And it was really fun that Amy Heckling, our director, was super into hats as well, because it really makes the outfit. It's truly, Dion's outfit without that hat wouldn't be what it is. All the Dr. Seuss hats, all the little berets that Alicia got to wear. To me, it's so European too. It's very French. The picot that she wore with the beret, timeless. It's forever. So it did elevate it and made it fun. And I think something that American audience also never seen. it was not here that people were like wearing hats in high school.
Yeah.
It really.
Yeah.
So I think that was also something like, whoa, this is so cool.
Especially that opening scene, like Dion's kind of bonnet hat is just
Oh,
so over the top and yet feels so right. Like for the character, which
perfect.
is
It's
great.
so
Yeah, so
right.
wrong and so right.
Right. Everybody just exactly. Everybody wears it for the first day of
Yeah.
school. And there was a designer actually from New York, Kokin, Kokin, who is to this day still is a millionaire and makes beautiful hats. So it was a great relationship, for us to have and bring that to the film.
Amazing. And are you surprised by how modern and relevant the outfits feel today? And like, I mean, there's particularly a 90s revival at the moment, I suppose. But there's one scene when I was watching it last night that really stuck out. There's in the mall with Christian, the mint green Empire line sort of cap
Oh,
sleeve dress,
oh,
and she has the mini green handbag. It looks like a Jacquemus mini handbag, like that's like
I
blown the
know.
world away. That's like it's
I know.
and I'm like, this is 25 years ago, and it feels like you would see that girl at the shows in Paris, exactly the same look. It's
Yeah,
that street style
yeah,
thing.
yeah. You know what? I think that it's just testament to kind of my talent and kind of my sensibility. I feel like that I really had a very much of a global point of view
Mm.
at the time when that was really like in our vocabulary.
Yeah,
Because I grew up in Europe, I think I had a different perspective on things. What really kind of maybe I grew up with and what I've seen in my life,
yeah,
what kind of interested me as fashion. It wasn't really this kind of American trendy stuff. It was much more kind of elevated fashion, high fashion, and then translating that successfully to the high school,
yeah.
having some kind of intuition what would work,
Mm.
and creating fun stuff like the Chanel like a water bottle that Cher wore in the gym scene,
Mm.
was then on Lagerfeld's catwalks. So, I didn't set out to do that. What happened? So it's a delight, and I am surprised, but I feel kind of justified in a way. Like, wow, that things that I really thought will work, they did. And that's a great feeling. I think if the collection is successful, and it's like you're like, yeah, that worked. Like your pink suit. Oh my God, we all want it.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. And how do you feel today when you still see girls dressed as the characters for, say, Halloween, or designers referencing them in their shows?
Warm my heart. I jump for joy. I mean, I think really meeting the women on the street, and I just was at this art gallery opening a few months ago before COVID, and there was a young girl dressed so cute, and I said, "You are so adorable, and just I love your fashion sense." And we started talking, and she found out I did Clueless, and she almost cried, and then we said goodbye, and then the parents came around, and they were like, "Can she take a picture? This is like the best day of her life." It's just those are the moments, when young people write me and say, you inspired me to be a fashion designer or costume designer. You delighted my life. Now I'm showing the movie it feels my life had a purpose. As crazy as it's the creativity. It kind of, costume design job is you get up at 5 a.m, you work 12, 14 hours, you a lot of times out of town on location, you don't see your family. It's a kind of a hard profession in a way. It's not a 9 to 5. You have to be extremely dedicated. You have to love what you do because it's all consuming, filmmaking, being part of that kind of circus troupe, as we call it. So it's a great feedback and a great kind of accomplishment to feel, because it's really a lot of work went into it, a lot of movies. Romy and Michelle, Never Been Kissed, Enchanted,
Yeah.
House Bunny, American Pie. I've done recently Santa Clarita Diet with Drew Barrymore, continuing her relationship after so many years. So it really is,
Do you have a favorite?
how can you ask a mother whose child is favorite? Clueless will always be.
I used to say the same about my
Right.
shows. I used to say the same.
It's hard. It's. I love Clueless. Will always be my calling card. But I love Enchanted. Amy Adam dress that I designed. That came from 2D animation to live action. Working with Drew Barrymore and having the opportunity to dress her now, and she's a mother of two. Since Wedding Singer, where we were like both almost teenagers.
Yeah.
And having these deep relationships. It's to me, it's about empowering girls. It's about really giving them to to feel good. I mean, I do the best makeovers in a movie. You know, if you look at all my movies, like I was recently in a magazine, Entertainment Weekly, and I was included in this spread of the best makeovers, and 2 of my movies were there. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really, this is what I can kind of, I think what I'm good at and what I bring, the feel good, the kind of, you know, be a girl, feel good in your skin. And I love that. That really is kind of the legacy of my work.
Clueless as a set, like it was a lot of the actors and actresses, it was their first, a lot of them, it was their first set to be on. And, you know, they were, it was a really young cast and crew. What was the atmosphere like on set? Did everybody get along? Was it fun? Was it crazy?
Oh, it was so much fun. Yeah. It was so much fun. I mean, we're still friends. I'm still super close with Alicia Silverstone. You know, I'm still very close with the director. I don't see the boys that often, but if we cross our paths, you know, on sets, it's like, oh my God, Donald, hugs, you know. It's just, you know, I mean, Paul Rudd, he lives in New York, so I don't see him that often, but it's just, it's, you know, I think it's kind of like the formative years, like if you were together in a sorority or something, you know, and you live this time, and then this project kind of kept you together, bringing us together at all the anniversaries and all the different photo shoots. And, you know, it's something very unique. And I think that also our leader, Amy Heckling, the director, had to do something creating that atmosphere, you know, like really championing these young actors, you know, and championing me and my talent, you know, saying, get that head, let's do it. You know, what else can you bring? Let's have fun, you know, let's push the envelope. I mean, if you think of the way that movie was shot, you know, she hired this incredibly talented director of photography, Bill Pote, who shot this film also in a very unique way. It was like a fashion eye. You know, so the camera went to all the detail. The camera went to her shoe and up her leg and to her, you know, pen. We saw the detail. And that was also something that was, you know, it's like when you have someone who encourage creativity on all levels, and that it means acting, designing, you know, it's a beautiful thing because I think the product feels that.
Okay, so I have one final question for you. What have you kept? What do you still have from the movie? What pieces? Do you have any of the clothing? Do you have any memorabilia, Polaroid sketches? Do you have anything at all, or is it?
I have sketches because they, you know, that's what I did in design. So I have a couple sketches because the clothes, unfortunately, you know, Paramount kept most of the clothes, and 25 years later.
Well, because I read somewhere that Alicia Silverstone got given all of the clothes, and she said later that she just kind of gave them all away to, like, over the years to different people. Is that true?
And I think
who got the Alaya dress?
Oh, the Alaya dress went back to Alaya. That was on loan.
Okay.
But yeah, it was actually very, very, very sad because we have nothing. And, you know, there's been many costume exhibit, and that I was not able to be part of because, and it's such an important film, and I'm not able to really donate anything for the exhibit. So, you know, to this day, I think Alicia really feels bad that you know, we don't have anything, that she actually gave it away, not understanding at the time, I think, being young, what that movie is and what that movie became, you know. But it's also so many years ago. I mean, even if they were hanging maybe in a costume house, they could be tattered and they could be, you know, really not available, but they'll live on a screen forever.
They will. And that's a testament to you, Mona. So thank you so much for giving us Clueless and for giving us those characters and those outfits. It really has been an endless source of joy for me and so many. So thank you so much.
This is so great. I just love talking to you, and, you know, it's so much fun, and I appreciate truly, you know, the fans and the legacy of this very much so. Yeah.
It's one of the longest episodes I've ever done. I could literally just sit here and talk to you for hours. I'm just like, I'm so genuinely fascinated just in the whole process and, you know, costume in film. And that's kind of one of the reasons I started the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Henry. Take care. Bye. Ciao.
Thank you so much, Mona, for that. I literally could sit here for hours and talk to you about that movie. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. I'll be back next time with another iconic guest to talk about some iconic looks. Until then, I'll keep you entertained on Instagram at What Were You Thinking Podcast, and take a look at our TikTok at WWYT_podcast. If you liked what you heard, let me know. Give us a rating. 5 stars, of course, are what we prefer, but anything else is, I don't know, doable. I'm going to have a quick look at the Vestiaire Collective app and see if I can find something ridiculous to wear for next week's Zoom call. If you download the app, make sure you use my promo code for 20 quid off when you spend 150. Just add Henry at the checkout. You are welcome. Bye!